Today we are joined by Vasanthan Ramakrishnan, an Indian-American immigrant, founder, writer, advisor, and someone whose work is deeply rooted in the belief that talent alone is not enough if the world cannot see it. Before becoming the founder of Ascend HSI Advisory Partners and launching multiple initiatives spanning immigration strategy, media, investing, advocacy, and child safety, Vas's journey was shaped by technology, human rights, and community-driven work. Along the way, he noticed a recurring challenge. Countless talented people remain invisible, not because they lack ability, but because they lack the tools, the language, and the systems needed to make their value visible. That realization became a defining mission. Rather than asking people to change who they are to fit existing systems, Vas has dedicated his work to helping immigrants, entrepreneurs, researchers, professionals, and advocates navigate uncertainty while staying true to their identity. But this conversation goes beyond business and entrepreneurship. It is about transformation. It is about turning displacement into purpose, adversity into service, and ambition into impact. So today, we will explore Vas's remarkable journey and discuss a question that sits at the heart of his work. What becomes possible when immigrants are not simply expected to survive in new environments, but are truly seen, supported, and empowered to build the lives they came here to create? Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, STJ, on Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. And thank you so much, Vas, for joining us today. I know you are super, super busy, so I really, really appreciate your availability that quick. And we just met through a friend who is Dr. Alyssa White, the head of the Mindset Mastery Moment production group. So thank you.
No problem. Pleasure is actually mine, Dr. Slava. It's been a pleasure. The last conversation we had, I think, was just like perfect. We just had the alignment right there. I think, in certain conversations, you just talk with the person, you just right away know that, you're aligned. So that's what I felt last call, and I'm super excited to be here as well. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, I really, really appreciate you. And thank you for the compliment. My head is going to probably blow up, but it's not. I promise. I promise. We're going to keep it nice and safe. So As you know, and I explained to you on our first call or last week's call, that our platform is all about storytelling. So let's start with your story. And I would like to just go over some of the stuff that we discuss and we address on this show, like displacement by default, by design, leaving everything you love and everybody that you know behind, to pursue a better life or pursue education or pursue new opportunities. Me and you, we are first generation American immigrants. We were not born here. We were born in two different parts of the world, but also we talk about how we end up leaving our home world into the new world and what does the process of assimilation, acculturation looks like. So let's start with your story behind how did you end up here in the United States and what were the circumstances that brought you here?
Got it. I think, of course, I moved when I was incredibly young. I mean, I'm 31, I just turned 31, but I moved when I was 21 and definitely at an age where I don't think that you have a full understanding of the world yet. You've known something. Hey, you probably know part of your identity. You probably know what you want to do with your career a little bit. You have some role models maybe that you've looked at, but you've not quite figured out what you want to do with life, right? So that's kind of the point that I was, thrusted upon to, hey, I graduated from my bachelor's degree, basically, like let's go back to the story there. Just graduated from my bachelor's degree from a really good private university in India. And just about everybody around me was just moving to the US, right? That's a fact, and I have to admit that. I don't want to have a whole story about, hey, I built this from age 5. No, not really. No, hey, I saw a lot of people moving to the US at the time, and it just made perfect sense as, okay, everybody's doing it, let me go ahead and do it. Of course, my story transforms from, kind of doing what everybody was doing to completely not doing that, and then just like, have a whole arc there. But I'd like to definitely begin with just, what motivated me. But just immediately after coming though, however, and I want to share like days after coming here, I immediately understood that the US was all about opportunity. But it was in a way that, like not everybody says it, but it was like, you have a lot of opportunities, but you don't actually have a lot of access to it. I've seen in the first few days of my entry here, everything was new, obviously. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the language. I still struggled with the language at the time and all of that. But I could definitely see that opportunity was out there, but absolutely did not know that, how would I access it? What options do I have? What's my strategy? Nothing I knew. I was a international student at Purdue University, and that's really just all I had, right? At that time, international student, Purdue, Indiana. That's all what my story was when I entered. Yeah.
So share with our audience, our listeners, what is your educational background?
Oh yeah, so that's where things get interesting. So for me, I'm a engineer by training, right? I finished my bachelor's engineering in mechanical engineering with a specialization in automotive engineering from in India Private University. And then in the US, I initially applied for mechanical engineering, just following back on what I studied, but did not like it. Within a few months, I transferred to industrial engineering, and I loved it, by the way. Industrial engineering was amazing. I definitely did not want to deal with HVACs and, doing heat transfer calculation. That's not me. I did that for 4 years in bachelor's, and I did not want to do that. I loved engineering, but not mechanical engineering. So in industrial engineering, things got a bit interesting. It was more about product design. It was more about systems. It was more about, okay, how do you, basically just build systems, build frameworks, but more in the context of just engineering, right? Civil engineering, manufacturing companies and all of that. So by training, I'm still in, I would say like, engineering. I don't have any other degrees, but my pivot kind of happened right around the end of 2019 when I did my engineering project management. Even though it was still engineering, the project management exposed me to a whole lot of things, right? Project management was more about people than projects. Even though the name has project management, it's more people management. So that's where I started to learn about different types of people, different types of, initiatives and projects, and how do you deal with different types of people? How do you operate in intersectional environments? How do you operate in diverse environments? And that's kind of, put me towards that. Of course, I'm going to get into my story of the whole nonprofit and how I, went to a different thing. But by way of background, yes, I am an engineer, and then who became a project manager eventually.
I'm not surprised. I knew that you were some kind of an engineer, but not like my brother has a master's in EE. He's electric engineering. So just from the way you answer your questions, because I'm trained in dentistry, part of our brand and a part of our culture, in order to give our patient the right experience that they're looking for, we understand personality styles. So yeah, I love engineers. I click with them. I'm very analytical. I'm not an engineer, but I come from an engineer kind of math, whole family is in math and finance and all that stuff. So going back to what you have said, managing people expectations, and I've been doing dentistry 27 years, and I found myself the last 10 years that I'm spending 80% of my time managing patient and team expectations and just 20% of the time performing dentistry. So the application of dentistry became minor compared to the application of my skills, trying to understand people in order to manage their expectation. Because regardless what we think about dentistry, at the end of the day, it is a business. At the end of the day, you are rendering some kind of service to the patient, and those are the consumers. And also, we're not able to give the patient the experience that they're looking for or the service that they're looking for to be worth the money they're paying without actually training the team and managing the team expectations. It's just a back and forth thing. So I love that you made that point, which I totally agree with you. And you're still very young, by the way, very young.
Thank you for that.
And you started
Sometimes
young.
I need to be reminded, though. Sometimes I I need to be reminded. I'll be honest though, because you see a lot of these 17-year-old somethings that are like, oh, I'm a founder. So in that crowd, I love to hear that though. Thank you.
No, you're very young. And in my generation, I was born 1969. I don't even bother look at the 17-year-old. It just, for me, it's just going to give me a headache and it's just going to ruin my day. But I absolutely agree with you. The new generation are very, very resourceful. They are very entrepreneurship mindset. They looking into the future so much and planning for the future. When I graduated from dental school. I was 30 years old and I had no idea what I want to say, but we addressed that in our episode so many times that, the world is changing. And I see it a lot more as we travel to advocate and advertise for our franchise through dental schools, that the young generation are just so smart and they are like spot on what really they want. And they're very, very well driven, which is very, very inspiring and very promising, hopefully for the good. But let's go back to immigration and you coming to the United States. And I ask every single guest that I have on this show as a newbie coming to the United States, if you can share with us, what was your impression coming to the United States, and did you feel that your realities differed so much from your expectations?
Okay, that's a great question, actually. And I know this, for me, it had, like a huge evolution from what I had initially thought that, things would be to how things were. So again, going back to the US, always like, someone from India and someone from Asia always looks at the US as opportunity. That's the first thing you remember, so anyone that you ask, they'll be like, okay, opportunity in terms of jobs, opportunity in terms of money, opportunity in terms of, freedom, opportunity in terms of anything. But, the reality though is obviously complicated. And for me, to 2016, not too long though, I would say still like 10 years, but the reality was much more complicated. The US did and does continue to offer a lot of opportunities, but I like to say that it does not always hand you clarity. And this is something that kind of really stuck with me. Yes, it gives you opportunity, but it does not hand you clarity. So you land here and then you quickly realize that talent and smart alone is not enough anymore. You have to now understand systems. So as someone coming from Asia, the way things work back home, and I think we might have a lot of similarities here, right? Like from our countries, that we don't focus a whole lot on systems. We focus a whole lot on people and how things work. Like you go to for example, you go to like a government office and you just trying to get something done. More likely than not, in somewhere in Asia, you would go into the office not knowing what the requirements are, and you're going there to only ask them what the requirements are and kind of supplying it, and then you get done. But now in the US, you can't expect to go into the DMV and be like, okay, I don't know what the requirements are. Can you let me know? And they're going to just hand you a link or a poster. Go look at that. And that's it. They're not going to let you know what the process is. But in India, the person would probably just sit you down. Even though there's so many people waiting, they'll sit you down. They'll talk about that because that's just how the culture is. It's more people driven. It's not process driven. And there are not a lot of systems back home. Of course, because of that, we have a lot of problems that we need to fix, right? I mean, lacking systems, but that's one thing that I really, really noticed, that you have to understand systems. Now, on top of that, layer in, and this is where that intersectionality comes in, you have to now understand language, you have to understand culture, you have to understand paperwork, you have to understand networking, money, timing, confidence, and even how to tell your own story, right? Coming in as a student, and, I was interviewing for research assistant jobs at the time because it would give me like a scholarship and being able to teach. But when they asked me for an introduction, I'm thinking, hey, I've never done an introduction before. I've never said, okay, about me. I don't know. I mean, I just say like, okay, my name is this and I studied at this university and, I'm here. And that's all what came to my mind initially. But that's not at all how they talk in the US. They have, like a certain structure that you draw upon your experiences. And, of course, typically these people have a lot of exposure. So they're able to talk about international experiences and whatnot, which I had none. And, it was a whole lot difficult for me to understand all of that. And personally for me, I think that nobody really prepares you for that part. You think that immigration is just about arriving in a new country, but a whole lot of it is actually about rebuilding your entire identity, I would say, in a place where nobody knows your history. So I definitely understood I definitely underestimated, actually not understood, I underestimated the emotional side of it, but yeah, was pleasantly surprised. Of course, that tension, that pressure, that, that whole lot of that pressure definitely shaped me. It forced me to become more resourceful and more empathetic towards other people, of course, and more kinder. And a lot of the work that I do now also comes from remembering what it felt like to be super talented and super smart and being in a good school, but not understanding how the system works. So I never forget that feeling, by the way.
No, you nailed it, because when I came to this country, 1988, United States was a whole different culture. I'll tell you that, right? So my husband, Ihab, when he came from Egypt in 1970, so United States culture by 1990, 92, 93, that's when the switch happened. It started to change. It was very systemically oriented. It's just system. Before that, it was just like back home, just like our home world. Yeah, people really cared about people. And by the way, when you go to DMV, my time, there's a booklet. There's no flyers. It's just a booklet. You take it. There's no link. There's no internet. There's no website. Everything was paper. That's number one. Number two, but the culture of the United States was very much the classical, traditional culture. So for us was a little bit more familiar than what you guys had to go through after the 2000. But that changed for us. That's been here before the 2000, saw the switch and saw the change. And to us, if you sit down with us, the ones that were born in the 1900, it's really unrecognizable. The culture have changed, but it's changing in such a fast rate that you cannot even keep up with it. I can't even keep up with it. I mean, I own 3 businesses. I have the franchise. I have the podcast, but things moving really, really fast. It's almost this machine that's constantly been upgraded. That's constantly the software. It's been changing. It's going, but it's faster than even normal. I believe. So, but you mentioned a couple of things, and I do agree with you. For us, it's more the traditional tribal connection. Humanity back home, I think, because of our culture and history is so ancient, you cannot just erase that. Our countries and our regions, Jordan, it's considered to be in Asia. And my husband, Ihab, he's North African. But those countries and in India, it's ancient. China is ancient. So you cannot separate the ancient history and ancient culture from how the world is moving. That vast change in the world, you just can't, because people are rooted into that culture. People are rooted into the, like I said, traditional tribal connection. But I agree with you. Coming to this country, you had to change your belief system, because you have to drop what does not serve you anymore, because you are in a very different environment. And consequently, you have to change your identity. I'm not saying strip your roots, I'm not saying forget your culture. I'm just saying that almost you have to switch hats. Your heart is where your heart is back home, but you have to put a dress, or you have to put an outfit that really matches and serving what you're trying to achieve in this country. And it's all about identity. But the hardest part, there is an emotional component about that, because I had to go through it. I felt so guilty. I felt like I am abandoning my culture. These are the roots and this is the background of my ancestor. How dare I change my belief system that I grew up in and been living with, that belief system that I carried with me? Because as you know, as an immigrant, that's all we carry with us, right? Our education, our culture, our principles, our values, our belief system. So that's what made us who we are. So how dare we change it? But the difference is we need to recognize that you don't have to strip your roots. You just have to modify it and alter it, because if it's not going to serve you that well in the new environment, in the new culture, in the new system, like I said, it's an adapter, right? You have to connect the adapter to who you are in order to able to adapt for the new culture. Because if you have, when you go to probably India, it's a different electricity, 220 and 110. You need the adapter. Otherwise, things are going to burn. Things are not going to, they're not going to work, and you're not going to get the service that you are, looking for. Do you agree with that though?
Absolutely agree with that, right? I mean, I think this is, with all immigrants, there's this thing we call switch, I think, right? I mean, I know there's a running joke with Indians particularly, there's always this running joke that, the memes come out like, like an Indian guy goes to Starbucks and then, they do like an order and then they go back home. They're not looking for Starbucks. They're not looking for any big brands. They go to a small tea/coffee shop and they're buying coffee that costs like 15 cents in US dollars, right? And they buy that. And then there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And I know that is a running joke that they're made fun of sometimes, that, you go to the US and you buy this and you come back home and then you do this. But I think that that's the right thing, because you're switching. You're switching from how you're living here to going back home. And now you're just like, okay, you're relieved and you're going back to your roots again. And I think that's a really good thing. I have that switch too, by the way. When I'm here, I'm a certain way and I go back and I'm Indian right there. I go back. Yeah.
No, absolutely, 100%. So, I want to move on to the whole thing about making people that needs certain resources to make their value very visible. So, if you can actually walk us through how helping invisible talent become visible, and what does visibility mean to you?
Correct. That's a really good question, by the way, because, a lot of times people confuse visibility with fame. And, many times I've had people try to have conversations with me and they're mixing both. And I know that. And they're like, oh, I'm not famous. But I'm like, okay, I know, we're in the immigration context here, but even outside for life, even for applying for jobs, even for launching a business, even for getting funding, maybe VC funding or angel funding, it's not about fame per se. Yes, fame can help, but visibility is a little different, right? So it's not about becoming loud or trying to look more important than you actually are, but visibility is about being properly understood in the environment that you're in. And I think that's what the real big thing is. So because you might have let's say people in your field, dentistry, who might recognize a certain figure, and they might not be like a household name, but they've made meaningful advancements in their field. So that context is really important, right? In their context, in their field, in their industry, in their environment, are they properly documented? Do people know their work, right? So that understanding part is what, visibility connects to. But people mix that with fame a lot, right? And we want to say that it is about making sure that a person's work, personal, professional, doesn't matter. Their sacrifices, their intelligence, their potential is not simply lost in the details, right? It's not just simply lost in the details, but they're knowing how to communicate that in a language. And when I say language, not just like English, and I'm not saying that, but in a language, in a system that the larger mass can actually recognize. So this particular thing, by the way, this is a very common problem with immigrants, right? Most of the people, at least, not even someone, most of the people I know, they're incredible researchers, doctors, founders, engineers, advocates, some even really talented artists, but their stories are usually scattered across different projects they might have done. It's buried in some personal email they had 10 years ago that they forgot about. It's sometimes in these podcast interviews that they have done, or some, really good appearances that they've done, community works, long nights, everything that they've done, right? Quiet responsibilities, we call it, quiet achievements, but they're really fragmented. So they might have done really wonderful and meaningful work, but nobody has helped them connect the dots. Is how I look at it. At least that's the terminology I use. So when they enter an immigration system, or anywhere, and that might be an immigration system, or them going for funding, them going to start a new business, they're trying to get maybe an SBA loan and all that. So here, with the system that we're in right now in America, a media system, a funding system, or a professional system, or a VC system, they look a whole lot smaller on paper than they are in real life. And that happens more frequently than not for immigrants. So that's basically what that is, right? Invisible talent. It's not that talent does not exist, but they have just not, I guess, shown to the world what they are about and what they've actually done. So that's kind of how I would, phrase that visibility, by the way. Yeah.
No, it makes absolute sense. Which is basically, if you do have the talent, but you're not seen, right? Because I always say, as a not minority, but as an immigrant, just like you're coming into somebody's house, right? You have to almost overperform and be so polite and so by the book because you're an outsider, right? And if you're a guest in somebody's house and you do not follow the rules and you don't follow, there's a system in every single house, how we eat, when we eat, who to sit next to, how to talk, with your body language, and whose house is it, right? And as you know, if it's a senior member of the family, it's different than I'm going to my sister's house, it's different than I'm going to my friend's house. So there is a code of conduct, how we conduct ourselves. And if we as immigrant, we have to perform in a certain way in order to be seen, in order to be recognized. But it's almost like we have to overperform in order to be sticking out of the crowd. Otherwise, we're going to just go with the flow, because what makes you special? They used to tell me that when I came here undergrad in 1988. It's like, who are you? What's so special about you? Well, I'm not very special. I just need an opportunity. And that's the interview you had we had the international advisor at Case Western Reserve. It's like, okay, tell me, why should Case Western accept you? What do you bring to the table? What makes you special? What are your ambitions? What are you how basically they're asking you that. If we give you a degree and you decide to stay in the United States, how are you going to benefit the United States? How are you going to add to the quality of the United States economy, job, career, professional entrepreneurship? So you had to write an essay. That was before your time. Write an essay, submit it. And if the essay catches somebody's eye, then they will grant you the interview. Then they will review the essay and the interview. And then they'll decide if you are quality enough or you are good enough to be accepted at Case Western is a private school too. So that's why, it's very important. It's not public. So I'm sure things have changed, but so that is very, very important point to clarify. And a lot of my guests, when I ask them that, did you feel that you had to overperform in order for you to be noticed and for order to be, let's use your words, visible, to be giving that opportunity? Do you agree on that? Do you feel that way or no?
Fully agree though. I always say, I do 2, 3, 4x sometimes to just, simple things. And, a lot of times my professors back in, university would always say this, that, you just, it's almost always an overkill, but they don't say that as a negative thing, right? They laugh with me and then we both laugh, but it's almost always an overkill. And I personally say that, you rather do an overkill than an underkill. I think an underkill is bad. Like, it might look, you might look too passive, but you come off too strong. I think that's fine because you can always just regulate it, so that's my whole life though, I would say. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's also the culture, Vas, because being an OCD, I'm Palestinian by origin. My parents are Jordanian. But growing up in Saudi Arabia, we were second class citizens. So as even Saudis, I'm saying, if a Saudi gets a B+, that's amazing. But you as an immigrant, like, what makes you so special? You got to be AA+ in order to be recognized. And that's the case across the history, across cultures. But it is absolutely being an OCD over achieving or better than underachieving, because if we happen to need that extra fluff, we can actually pull it out of our, what I call the tool bag. Now, I got some data for you and I really, really want to find out what you think about that. Yes. So according to 2026, 30% of the immigrants in the United States, they end up returning home after 10 years. 30% after 10 years. And the reasons are economical reason, family ties, and government policies. So, I didn't realize that the number was so high only after decades. So what do you think of that number? Do you agree? You disagree with it? Do you agree with the reasons?
I think so, yeah, because even I've been reading some reports, right? Something came out of Reuters and Axios, and I was reading some polls and some information on net migration. And of course, right now, I know the political climate's a little too interesting, I would say. But even otherwise, I agree with you. In the last 10 years, I think the net migration numbers are looking. Of course, there's a lot of people who are also coming in. That's helping, but a whole lot of people are also going back. I think the economic factor, I'm not going to blame them on it because things are getting super super, super expensive. I remember in 2016, again, this is already inflated, right, from an inflation and economy standpoint, but just to do the comparison, right, I moved in 2016, and then, when I came in here and I set up my dorms and all those things with the university, you always have this tradition of, going in for that one Walmart trip to get everything you need, absolutely. So you're shopping for not just food supplies, you're shopping for chairs and tables and anything that you would do to furnish your apartment, right, from 0 to 1 basically. And that 0 to 1 first time shopping for me costed about $200, and that was 2016. That was already high to begin with, by the way. $200 for a student is a lot of money. And my brother and his family, by the way, just moved in 60 days back, 2 months back. So I have a beautiful comparison to kind of make there that really demonstrates how expensive the US is getting. So they did their same 0 to 1 first time shopping, and that costed, they had to literally split that into 3 different trips because they couldn't afford it. So it costed well over $900. And I would say they cut down on a lot of stuff that I would have gone for. They cut down on it and they still ended up with $900. So definitely the inflation is there. People can see it, how expensive things are getting, and this translated to cars and this translated to housing. It's just really crazy. I used to be able to get beat down cars for $2,000. Now those same cars are costing $8,000, $9,000, right? And I remember I'm a geek when it comes to housing and all those things, and I love investing, right? Real estate investing. And I remember 2016, around the campus I was looking at properties and all those things, and I could never afford them, by the way. I was a student back then, but just curiosity. It was around 80,000, 90,000. You could find good 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. It's a smaller state, obviously, because we're in Indiana. But now those same houses are 400, and I'm thinking, hey, in 10 years, how can something quadruple, right? It just does not make any sense because it's 400% increase. Of course, I know COVID had messed up the supply and demand and all of that stuff, but even then, that number is staggeringly crazy. So on the first reason, I absolutely understand, things are getting super expensive, and yes, a lot of people are getting priced out, I would say. I wouldn't even say they're moving out because of economic reasons. I would say that they're getting priced out, and that's the way that I would like to see it. Particularly a lot of countries that have good and flourishing economies, but they come here for opportunity, but they're looking at the expenses and they're just moving back, right? I have some German friends who said this exactly. That's that. And then definitely, family ties is super obvious, right? Because earlier in the, you would probably know this better, but in the 2000s, in the 1990s, I have some family members who moved here, but for them, they were actually able to also move their family members here, right? Their brothers and sisters, they could sponsor and they could bring them here. So the process was a whole lot easier and you could bring your family. But right now, in today's reality, with costs, with the process, with the administrative burden, it's going to take you decades to even just bring your own mother and your own father here, right? So with that, I think a lot of people are also realizing that, I'm just kind of better off home. I've made my money and I'm going back. I know part of the government is happy about that too. They're like, hey, you come in, you make money and then you leave. I get it. I know people have different sentiments. But overall, I think, with people, that's some small portion of the population is starting to look at the US as, I'm coming here, I'm going to use the opportunities, I'm going to make money, but I'm going to take the money back home, right? And I don't blame them. I get it. They are in what they are. And definitely government policy, like I said, super interesting times that we're living in right now. That's definitely reducing the number of people who are wanting to stay. I personally know, I'd say a good 5 to 7%. That's a high number, by the way. 5 to 7% of people who studied with me, who kind of came through with me for 5-6 years, who returned back. They were like, yep, we're pulling the plug. They had homes here. Their children were studying, and they're like, yep, you know what? I'm done. I'm really done. They pulled back and they left. So yeah, definitely that number is very reasonable, Dr. Slava. But again, keeping in mind that there are a lot of people who are coming in as well. So I think the net migration rates, with number of people coming in and some people going back, is, I think, balancing itself out, is what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and even I was talking to my husband Ehab's cousin. His wife is from Uzbekistan, and she told me that after 10 years, a lot of the Uzbek ends up going back because, like I said, they make X amount of money and they can live with that very, very well there because life is a lot more affordable. But also their time, and since I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out, retirement wise, I can tell you right now, I cannot afford retiring in the United States. Absolutely not. The way the prices are going and the way real estate is going, and going to Egypt, comparing, hopefully Egypt, the economy will boom. Probably same thing in India, same thing with China. It is, and the life has is a lot more colorful too. There's so much to do over there. Here, you can take your retirement fund and live there like a king, like a royalty, seriously. And on top of that, you can help people. But, what, in your opinion, real quick, what's the most misconception about immigrants in today's society in the United States?
Got it. I think the easiest one is that, of course, this is not at all true. It's definitely false, but some people think that, hey, immigrants are trying to take over the country. And I know there's different names for it. There's different, like terms that people have used, the great replacement theory and all of that. But it kind of really goes back to race and immigrants and, the misconception that, they're taking away the country and they're trying to, this other thing that I keep hearing also, by the way, is like, oh, immigrants come in, they don't adjust at all and they want to just like do their own culture. They want to impose. And that's another word I've seen, like impose their culture on us. But that's not at all the case. So, I mean, just about, and as myself as an immigrant, as all these people, we wear so many hats and we wear so many dresses, right? Metaphorically speaking. And all we're really trying to do is just adjust as best as possible. I know for some cultures that's difficult because of their own cultures, because of their own, factors, from where they grew up and all that. They're not able to change certain practices, right? I understand, hey, there are certain sentiments that are like deeply, deeply important for certain people that they're not able to change it. I completely understand that. But even those people, they're really desperately trying to, contribute to the economy. If not, they're already doing so much. But, everybody's trying to adjust here. Nobody is, and the thing that also really just gets my goat, Dr. Slava, is like, I know America is a country of immigrants. And, this is just off of reading and history and some movies I've watched. But you could see from 1920s and 1940s America that, the immigrants who moved from all over the world, they were also trying to adapt, right? Because America did not at the time have a specific culture, but it became a melting pot. And I think that melting pot is what's continuing, I would say. And the newer immigrants are coming and doing the same thing. I think the only thing that immigrants have in mind, which is good for everybody, is we're coming here for a better life. We want better opportunities. We want better access. But the misconceptions are definitely all around. And I think right now in this interesting time, it's a whole lot obvious that we can see statements, vitriol and online hate and, things being verbal. But I do think that this misconception has always been there. Yeah.
No, I agree with you 100%, but unfortunately humans forget history and you have to always reflect in history in order to understand what's going on these days. So number one, that if you don't want immigrants, don't accept them because you're accepting them and you're taking their tax money. I mean, you're paying, it's like investing into a company. I invest in a company, you got my share, I'm paying my dues to stay in the country. So everybody paying taxes. If I'm paying taxes, then don't accept us. Just close up the immigration doors and then just build your own country. Number one. Number two, this country is only 250 years old. It's not thousands.
Exactly. And that is so young in our standards, right? That's so nothing.
Young. It's like telling me comparing a 100-year-old to a 25-year-old. Number one, There's no experience. Number two, you have actually built this country as if in just like building a apartment complex in the middle of nowhere. And you said, yeah, we need tenants. We need tenants. You advertise, you're coming in. Okay. You pay, you sign your contract, you run to a contract. You have a contract for a year. You can renew it after 1 year. But also at the same time, it's like, okay, don't cook this food. Don't eat this food. Don't drink this food. I was like, okay, but this is a brand new complex, right? The land of opportunity. It was lawless before, especially, during the gold rush and after the Civil War. It was the rest, other than the East Coast, the rest of the country was lawless. It's just all free for all. So why are you advertising that you want tenants in order to satisfy your business? You invested in this brand new community complex and you want tenants and we're paying our rent, but you have limitation on number one. Number two, don't forget the West went to the East colonizing You don't think they introduce tea time? You don't think they introduce sandwiches? You don't think they introduce like ball gowns and dances and stuff? Of course, and rightly so, because you don't want to strip, like we mentioned earlier. You don't want to strip your roots. You want to live your culture. You want to keep that, ties intact, which is fine. But why is it okay for you guys to practice your culture all the way to the West Indies, all the way to the South Pacific, but it's not okay for us to practice our culture and paying the money in order to have rights to practice our culture? I agree with you 100%, but it's not a conversation that is, well, me, I'm the victim. No, you're not a victim. You decided to build this company we call the United States and advertise for it. And it was like, newcomers, come on in, invest your money, work, pay us taxes so we can build the business, build the economy, the finance, the infrastructure. Everything about United States is built by immigrants. But now it's like, oh, we are the victim. Just stop accepting new patients, like what I say in practice. Stop accepting new clients. If you guys are happy and satisfied, stop accepting new clients for a decade and then revise the economy, revise your policy, and you can always open the opportunity for people to come in. So I'm sorry, I'm just on a rant. I'm all about
No. That is very true. I see exactly what you mean, Dr. Slava, because the thing is, like, they know, though. That's the funny thing.
It's accountability. Take accountability action, taking accountability for your action, taking accountability for your decision. Nobody forced you, twisted your arm to open up, right? It's a business, right? Immigration is a big business,
exactly.
Right?
But,
Sorry,
but the returns, though. Oh, no. Not really. I think I'm just supporting your point here, right? I mean, the return that, however, this business that we call the US is getting in return is some of the smartest people out in the world are here. And if you look at their backgrounds, they're from somewhere else, but they came here because you gave them opportunity initially and you gave them access, you gave them a beautiful life, which they're thankful for, of course. But at the end of the day, that process is what allowed such talented people to be here and contribute to the country. So that's something to really keep in mind. If like 10 years, right? I mean, these guys know that's why they're not doing that, right? They're all like touching on certain topics, but won't actually do a blanket, oh, don't come, because they know what 10 years of stopping can put behind. That'll put them 40 years behind. And they know that, right? I mean, they know that because this country has been built by the brilliant minds from all around the world, but by allowing them access and freedom to do what they do best. And they know that, so that's the point I wanted to add in there. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Even if you look at the real estate in the UK, right? The real estate, I think UK number one ownership of the real estate in UK, I think he's from India. He's such an amazing entrepreneur, right?
I know,
but
right?
if you look, it's amazing. But what they need to realize, how do you think this country became so advanced in 250 years? Because you pumped all that potential and the expertise, and it was brilliant. I'm giving them the credit. That was a brilliant mindset, like the mastermind behind it. It was such a brilliant and novel idea. Never been done anywhere in the world. And that's what I admire about the United States. I have to give credit when credit is due. But at the same time, don't complain, because when you look at it, Bezos, he's an immigrant. Steve Jobs, his dad was an immigrant, right?
Yep.
Elon Musk, he's an immigrant. He's from South Africa. So those are, but that's the beauty about this country. So those are all the immigrants that we end up talking about or reading about, the misconception of like, oh, there's an immigrant. So everybody, even the Aryan race in the United States, Irish, Polish, English, German, everybody's an immigrant, except for the natives are the native of the land, the Native American. But that's about it. But the natives were really happy, harvesting, farming their land, living every season after season. They had no ambition to open up the country until colonization came in. But that's the story. We can talk about this. We can do an episode about that. Absolutely. So we are in agreement. So the last point that I would like to have you shed some light on, what do you think the impact that you're hoping for behind the work that you're doing right now in the next 10 or 20 years?
Correct. So I think for us right now, at a higher level, I would say that right now we have a huge service component that's helping hundreds of immigrant families. I mean, to be accurate, like 173 high-skilled immigrant families have benefited from ours, and they've gotten their green cards and they've settled down, and some have gotten into citizenship. So, that's with the numbers. But again, for me, in the next 10 years or 20 years, what I'm hoping to do is, again, go back to like how I felt when I was coming in early, is to be able to build a system out of this, right? I mean, I think we already do have a system, but at a level of, at a national level, basically, like, we don't want, people to see immigration as just like a survival tactic, or like, oh, you know what, it's a paperwork, or it's this, it's that, but rather we want it to have a very standardized building system, that it's an actual framework that we can actually scale. And when I say we scale, I'm not just meaning my firm. I meant like everybody else. Like, should be able to like scale that system. And I want to make a meaningful contribution to that, right? Of course, also on a personal level, I do hope that the measured is, the impact is actually measured through people. We also want, a personal goal of mine, by the way, is like, right now, I think we're about like 1,000 individuals helped, through the work that we're doing. But our 10-year goal is to kind of have at least 50,000 people, right, helped, or on the alternate side, like maybe 15,000 families may be helped. That's through the numbers. So definitely for me, I would measure that through how many families got stability, how many founders who have actually been able to build their companies, and how many researchers or doctors who actually were able to stay in the US and contributed to their respective fields. Maybe students who stopped undermining and underestimating, who they are. Maybe some professionals who finally realize that their story matters. But at a higher level, though, I want to be able to build a system that actually enables people to access things. Because right now, I think with all the knowledge and with LLMs and AI and all that world, yes, there's a lot of knowledge that's out there, but I still think that there's a lot of gap, right? And this is where, like it goes back to even the previous question and the answer we spoke about the misconception that, there's also this misconception that all immigrants are the same, right? They think that every immigrant has the same story. They, had some difficulty at home and they came back here. That might be true with someone, but that does not. No, every person has their own story. Every person has their own, everything, education, language, visa status, family structure, timing, circumstances, background, everything. It's just completely different. Some come with resources, some don't come with it. Some are welcome professionally because of where they're from, and some just feel invisible, right? So to all of that, what I want to be able to create is, through Ascend and the work we do, is to be able to have a standardized system where anyone from anywhere in the world will have a very clear pathway, not only just from a government framework standpoint, because that's another thing that we want to work on as well, work with, potentially agencies that will help us, but have a standardized format so that any person at any knowledge level will know what their pathway looks like, will be able to like really draw out their thing, will be able to visually understand what they can do and how they can do things. And that's right now missing, but I'm hoping to really get there in the next 10 years or so, while helping thousands of families and hopefully get that 50,000 people by 10 years goal as well.
You will. I have no doubt. Absolutely, you will. You just have to. It's all about mindset, right? Mastering an unlimited mindset by eliminating limited beliefs. If you practice your limited beliefs, then that's going to hinder you and become an obstacle. But I agree with you. Immigration process. A lot of people. Let me go back. A lot of people think like we just get handed over. Right? The opportunity. Everybody said, because they see us now. You didn't see me 38 years ago, like what we have gone through. That's number one. So going through immigrating, leaving everything behind, taking that risk. Number one, you're in the mindset that failure is not an option. Quitting is not an option, right? And you better perform and you better achieve, because everybody behind you is watching you, saying that you sacrifice all this for this, like it better be worth it. So that's the mindset that we leave our home world with. It is a scary process. It is a nerve-wracking process. It's awkward. It's doubtful, but you can't doubt, because if you doubt, you start stumbling. But also at the same time, it's very awkward, because it's like somebody in the middle of the night, or you walk in the middle of the night trying to get help to survive, and you're knocking on somebody's door because that's the only house that has the light on, and hoping for the best. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what to expect, but you have to work it. But I agree with you too, because you discussed the point is diaspora displacement can be by default, by design. We're not all coming in because we survived famine or political conflict or war zone or what a financial, strains or misfortune. Some of us had really good life back home, and we consciously made the decision or made a conscious decision to come to the United States to do more because there's an opportunity. So that's displacement by design. We designed it that way. So I agree with you as far as the misconception. Oh, poor you coming. No, poor me. Don't like give me that victimhood, because we're not victims. We're actually pioneers, and we're trying to conquer our challenges and champion the stigma in order to make people understand, or the world understand, we are educated, we are stable, we are healthy, we are spiritual. Do you know what I'm saying? We have a rich culture. Our world is very colorful. And I say it all the time in my episodes, my culture is colorblind. When I came to this country, one of the things that I was shocked, I've been visiting the United States since I was 7 years old. So I was very familiar, with the States, and I related to the States, and I loved the casual kind of U.S. attitude. But when I started living here, I was baffled by, you guys are C-color. That's just one issue that I really, really struggled with, because as you know, India, same thing. Our region is so vast, and because it had so much interaction with different historical events and different blood and different races, we are all mixed, and we have so many different variety of people. We never see color. That's why you're colorblind. Exactly. But that's one of the many things that I struggle with in the United States, and I just couldn't understand the why. I get it, different political views, different religious views. You have, people in the north and south and east, they have their own culture, but we never judged people like we judged it here. And at the same time, I used to say, you all get a color problem, and you are so young. You got so much to learn. It's only, like I said,
it's going to go a whole long way, right? 250 years. You've got another 1,000 years to go before you start talking, man. Because we come from countries that are, several thousands of years old,
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But, being on this earth as a human race habitating, like, for example, like in Iran, 10,000 years ago, there's a proof 10,000 years ago, humans were wandering those lands. Do you know what I'm saying? So because you have that history, or the long line of history, you learn so many different lessons. But sometimes I get disappointed, because I love this country. I love the United States. United States made me who I am right now as an adult. But I get disappointed because you got so much to lose. Like, don't ruin it. Yep. Because of this, just minutia of unnecessary worries and concerns and stuff. Focus on what's important. Focus what's going well, and hopefully with somebody like you and other foundations, it will be much, much better. But the other last questions I want to ask you, if you would advise your younger self when you first arrived in the U.S., what would you tell him?
Ooh, that's a beautiful question, actually. First off, let me start with the one that definitely applies to me, and I think a lot of people. First off, like, I tell my younger self to just breathe. I start there first. Take a breath, breathe, relax. And then overall, I think when you are an immigrant, especially when you're an ambitious one, let's say with a lot of goals and, dreams, you sometimes feel like you have to figure out everything on day one, right? You land, and then you're like, oh my God, why am I not doing anything? And that's something that a lot of students, particularly right now, feel. They've gotten into universities, really good ones, and they're in their day one of program, and they're thinking that, wait, why am I not doing anything? So that's something that that a lot of students feel. And the other one, which is a big killer, by the way, is that immigrants feel like one mistake will ruin everything. And that's something that I don't know why we have it. Maybe that we just carry that as a baggage when we enter here. We've left so much behind that we think that, hey, that one mistake will just ruin everything. I know that helps in a lot of things, by the way, because we don't make a lot of traffic mistakes, or we don't do a lot of speeding. We don't do a lot of stupid stuff and get get into issues. So that's good. So that's good precaution, I think. But a lot of times in professional situations and interpersonal situations, we also feel that one mistake will ruin everything. And I think that's something that I always had, that even the smallest of mistakes, my wife usually points that out, by the way, that you don't need to be that perfect. It's okay that you make that one mistake. You don't have to understand everything on day one. Nobody does. So that's like one important thing. I'd like to add to this, by the way. The other major chunk of advice that will also particularly important for like younger folks is they confuse struggle with failure, right? It's very easy to confuse both, by the way. You think like you're really struggling and, that be financially or professionally or personally or, like in social situations with friend, family, whatever it is. But one should not confuse struggle with failure. I feel like failure is on the person, right? You choose to accept that you failed. I am someone who basically just refuses to admit it, and I keep fighting. I keep going, right? So you don't want to confuse the struggle with failure. A lot of the early immigrant experiences that I have seen, I think you feel like you're always behind someone, right? Like you think that, I'm in this university, but my friend is in that university. And, I don't have that much of network. I don't have my GRE score. I don't have this. I don't have that. He has a business. He has that. And I've had a lot of young folks right now, by the way, like who talk to me and they're like, hey, you graduated in COVID, like 2020. Even my university asked me the same question, like, how did you in like 5 years, 6 years get wherever you are? Okay. I'm definitely blessed to be where I am right now. I know I did a lot of stuff. I've been blessed and, all of that. But you don't want to look at that and be like, I'm a failure. I don't want another immigrant to look at me and think that they're a failure. I want the opposite of that. So that's something that I would even tell my younger self, because I did that, by the way. I looked at really successful people and I thought, I'm a failure already to begin with on day one without trying anything. Of course, the good thing was that I actually did try something, and then I definitely grew in my career, in my personal life, and I got to where I am right now. But definitely that thought is with a lot of young folks. So that's something that I would, definitely say. In fact, to the point that I would even tell my younger self that parts of me that felt like a disadvantage or, like not progress on day one became the foundation of my work, with Feminist Pen Foundation, my nonprofit, along with, SNHS Advisory Partners, the one that we do right now. All of those were shortcomings that I felt personally that I then turned into companies. So I say to people right now who are starting out and, to my younger self as well as like to people starting out, that don't confuse struggle with failure. Have a breath, relax. Trust me, you don't have to figure everything from day one. Even if you make mistakes, that's not going to ruin everything. So that's kind of like the summary of what I would really tell myself.
That's beautifully said. And by the way, my husband tells me exactly what your wife tells you, because he's been here since he was 2. So he has the, not entitlement, but he's American. You know what I'm saying? For me, he's like, Slava, you need to be kind to yourself. It's okay. It's like, it has to be perfect, because there is no margin of error, because we have sacrificed so much. But I agree with you. Failing is not a failure. And I believe things happen for us, not to us.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you don't have to master your mistakes. Be careful, master your mistakes. You have to learn from them. I agree with you 100%, because these are the things that we teach even our team. And that's what makes our brand very different and unique than other brands. But I agree with you. Anybody, migration or immigration, even if you leave your little town or little village going into a big city, you're going to have the same attitude, but you need to be kind to yourself and in order for you to achieve what you need to achieve. All right. How can people find you? If somebody would like your services, how can they find you to access that?
Got it. So the easiest way, definitely, hey, if they are an immigrant, I think they'll definitely find some commonality, or there'll be something that they'll probably need from me. My top mate is the easiest one. And I know that I also did like a profile earlier. Maybe you might be able to like grab that link. But what I basically also did, and because I enjoyed the conversation so much, the prior one and this one, is I basically created a very specific code though. It's under the coupon code, like, thanks, Dr. Slava. And I have a whole TopMate link added on that guest info questionnaire that will basically be a free call. And I have like 10 of those free calls, by the way, that people can go ahead and book in there. They can talk to me about immigration. They can talk to me about entrepreneurship. They can talk to me about building a business, scaling, whatever that might be, right? So it's a discovery call link, which means they don't know exactly what they want. That's completely fine. We can just, figure that out in the conversation. But I specifically put that for like the thanks Dr. Slava as a coupon code on the URL. It comes up because I really enjoyed the conversation even on the first time that I did that before. So yeah, I'm super hoping that, hey, people see that and then they're like, okay, you know what, let's get that call done. I am giving 10 slots because I don't want to like also like, you know, do too much. Of course, I'm going to open more up. But for now, I have like about those 10 slots. And, you know, I don't know if I can say the link out here, but basically like the link is on the guest info questionnaire. Yeah.
I am so proud of you. I am. I mean, you could easily be my son. I've been married 34 years, but I'm not sure if you want me as your mom, because between two of us, we're OCDs. I don't think we're going to get anything done, or maybe yes, we will. Yeah, but I am so proud of you. And when I meet you guys, the young generation, the new generation coming to the United States, achieving that much, it really brings the pride out of me. And thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully this is going to be a long-term collaboration, and you will come on because I have 100 gazillion questions for you, but hopefully we'll grow together and through social media, and maybe one day we'll meet. Actually, my husband got accepted for his PhD program in chemistry at Purdue, Indiana, but he ended up going to California. So thank you so much for coming on. But we have reached the end of our hour. As a reminder, these episodes are uploaded weekly on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube by the Mindset Mastery Moments. So if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any episode, and it's free. This community is sponsored by humanity and supported by everyday people's stories. So please find us, join us, support us, and as always, be kind. Thank you for watching and listening. Hope to see you next time. This is Slava the Jordanian.